Yes, welcome to Imagine It's Twinmotion presentation, and thank you for attending. Today's agenda is going to include a quick overview demonstration of Twinmotion, and at the end we'll have a quick Q&A to go over any of your questions. So a little bit about me. Again, my name is Dean Miao. 30 years plus in the AEC industry. I'm out of the Western region for our building solution teams, and I'm currently stationed out of the San Francisco Bay Area office. A little bit more about me. Things that I do beyond work is I coach hockey. I'm a little bit old to play anymore, but I still enjoy getting out on the ice with my youngest son here in this picture. So let's get into Twinmotion. So what is Twinmotion? Twinmotion is a platform for AEC professionals. There are several compelling qualities about Twinmotion. First and foremost is the speed and ease at which the application is to learn, use, and just because it's easy to use doesn't mean we're sacrificing any image quality. It is also a tremendous communication tool providing various forms of media exports, from images, panoramas, videos, VR interface, and to what's called a presenter mode, which is a feature which packages the model into an executable file that can be shared with your other teammates or those who may not have Twinmotion. The product is already feature rich, but it is ever evolving with fluid upgrades, and its content and upgrade roadmap is quite extensive. Twinmotion also allows for asset content flexibility and expansion. The asset library in Twinmotion is quite substantial, but you're not limited to just the assets that are included in the product. You can also import and expand your library through a variety of resources that are online. And finally, the software is really fun to use. Once you get into it, you're going to find yourself experimenting with a lot of different features, and because of that, you're going to find how easy it is to use, and you'll get immediate feedback and results from your experimentation. So before we get into the actual demonstration, I want to run a quick video that our team put together that kind of showcases the demo file that I'll be using. So the quick video of the site that I'll be using for the demonstration. It really recaps a lot of the features that Twinmotion can provide for you. Characters, image mapping, you can see birds flying there, the material mapping, reflections, a lot of the trees. If you're used to the sort of those RCP trees, these trees that come with Twinmotion are very lifelike. Sun setting, going from daylight to nighttime. There's a lot of lighting features included. You can see some animated cars there driving on the roadway there. And as we zoom into the building, again, you can see night scenes. Again, the moon zoom across the screen and transition from day to night. Again, creating videos in Twinmotion is very, very easy. In the presentation, I'll show you how that's accomplished. As I teleport up into this particular area, you can see that the laptop's on fire. There's particle animations that are included. We can have animated paths for people walking on the site, just to give the model and your environment a little more context and feel for what's happening. In this particular view, we have camera capabilities where we can do depth of field. Other things, as we zoom out here, we can show seasons where the trees are going from summer to a fall, from fall to a winter. You can see the snow. We also have the ability to animate the growth of trees, which might come in handy for some landscape design. Again, transitioning to a nighttime scene, showing the lighting features here. And again, just panning around the building. So with that, let me get into an actual presentation of Twinmotion. So let me change my screen here. And let me open up Revit. So the context of this presentation is using the Revit application. Keep in mind that the workflow could be similar for a SketchUp file or another BIM application. But as you can see here, it's just a simple model here on a site. what you'll notice along the top is one of the tabs is the plugins for Twinmotion. So very simple. The Twinmotion basically has three features here. One is the See in Twinmotion. The See in Twinmotion functionality is basically a direct link into Twinmotion. It's a good method for when you're still vetting out the Revit model. You can quickly bring it into Twinmotion, kind of do some quick visualization studies, maybe tweak the model a little bit, re-export it back out to Twinmotion so that you kind of get a sense of how you want your model to look in the final renderings or animations. There is a settings tab here as well where you can set up various things for if you're wanting to use Twinmotion materials, Twinmotion objects. We can also export the BIM data that comes directly out of the Revit model. So that's a feature there for you. And finally, exporting. So probably the most optimal method for bringing the Revit file into Twinmotion is through an FBX export through Twinmotion Export. So again, you can see that there's various ways that we can export the model, what's visible here on the screen or selected items. How do we want the texture maps to be, exported to, copy to a file? How do we want to separate out the model by material, by family, or a no merge? And do you want to export vegetation, exclude MEP families and such. So once we've selected how you want to export that file, just go ahead and click on the export. It'll create that FBX file, and then we're ready to go ahead and use this inside of Twinmotion. So let me go into Twinmotion very quickly here. So let me close down my Revit file, and let me launch Twinmotion. Wait here. So, excuse me. Upon initiation of Twinmotion, you'll be presented with this welcome screen. Basically, it's just giving you some quick tips on how to navigate around your model inside of Twinmotion. Some other modes here of how you might want to navigate from Twinmotion or Revit or 3D Max or ArchiCAD. And of course, if you don't want this to start up every time you open Twinmotion, just gotta shut that off. So this is out of the box Twinmotion Viewport Environment. So before I open up the file and import that FBX file, just kind of give you a sense of what's going on here. You get this 3D environment in your viewport. It defaults with this standard ground covering and this city scene here. So this is your viewport that you'll be working in. On the left-hand side, you have your library where all of your assets and contents are pulled from and placed into your models. These menus can be collapsed down or brought up. So the library menu on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we also have another menu, which is our scene graph. Scene graph is a way that you can manage your model. So when you're bringing in the model, it's going to separate the model out based on how you've exported it or inputting the model into Twinmotion. And as I get into this model, you see how this is very useful to use. So again, it's sort of like layers in CAD or object styles in Revit. So you can separate the model so you can manipulate and manage all that content through the scene graph. And then finally on the top here, you got this little eyeball that, we can change certain aspects of our scene here, whether what time of day, whether we want to see it in plan view or 3D view and whatnot. And then, of course, I'm sorry, at the bottom, there's also this menu dock, and then there's a variety of other menus on the left-hand side here that I'll be exploring as we get into the model. And then finally, there's this hamburger menu on the left-hand side that shows you some preferences and other menu features of Twinmotion. So let's get into it. So let me go ahead and import that file from Revit. So let me go and get that. So I'm going to grab that community center. So I've grabbed the community center. So in the options, as I talked about earlier, depending upon how I export it or imported it, I want to keep the hierarchy of that file. So I want to keep all of the components that were developed and made, that were put into the Revit file. I want to keep that hierarchy when I bring it into Twinmotion. So I'm going to just go ahead and open that up. So just take a minute here. So once the file is in here, you can kind of get a sense of, well, I'm kind of in this space here. It doesn't really show me my building. So I can navigate around the viewport here, but what I found very easy is just go to my scene graph. And if I go ahead and you can see now that I have all those assets and all the information about the Revit file now in my scene graph. So if I just click on the community center and I hit the F on my keyboard, it automatically takes me to my model that quickly and that easily. So now I can kind of navigate around this model. I can see it's pretty raw, not a whole lot of interest on it. The ground is kind of generic, kind of lost in space out here a little bit, but you can see that I can just kind of orbit around this a little bit, and then I can start flying in and navigate around my model a little bit. So before we start working on the exterior of the building, what I want to do is kind of work on the inside and show you some of the features and functionality of doing material placement and some object placement. So again, I could probably fly into an area in the model, but what I find it's quite easy is I can do a search, and there's a specific thing that I want to go to. So I'm going to go to this billiard table. So if I go onto the billiard table, just like I did to find the model, if I click on this and hit my F key, it takes me right to that object inside of my model. So I'm not kind of floundering around in the model trying to find this object. I can easily search for that through my scene graph. So once I'm in my environment here, the first thing I want to do is start working on some placing of materials. So in the scene graph, again, I can just navigate around and kind of pan and look around at certain things. But to change materials, it's very quite simple. So if I hit my material picker here and I select this window pane here, it gives me information about that window pane. Just glass, cast gray. There's some features and things that I can do about this material at the bottom here. I can change its reflectivity, its scale, whether weather is on or not. That just shows that maybe rain is showing up on the window. And there's some variety of other settings here. But if I want to change that out, I'm going to go to my glass material library. You can see there's, again, this is preloaded with Twinmotion. If I hover over these, you can see the various types of glass that are available with Twinmotion. I'm going to go navigate down here and find one, this smoked glass or this dark glass. So if I want to put this onto the glass, it's better if just dragging it and dropping it onto that material. And it's that easy for me to now add that material to this window now. So again, as I talked about earlier, I can change its opacity. Maybe I want that to be a little less see-through, and I can make it more opaque, or kind of leave it alone. Again, there's things about its metalness, whether there's weather on. Maybe I want to change the color a little bit, but very easy to manipulate that material once it's placed into my model. Again, if I look over here, by default, this was the material that was placed on this wall from Revit. Not terrible, but not especially great. But again, I can change that material very quickly. So again, use my material picker. I can select on it. It tells me what it is. It's a natural stone, but I think I want to change that to something different. So if I go back to my material library and go on the stones, again, the library is quite extensive in what's included here. Let me just scroll down here and find maybe this stone wall. Again, I'm going to just drag it right on top of that wall, and you can see how quick and easy it is for me to add that material to that surface very quickly. Again, I can change its scale and bring it up or down. And it's that easy to put a material on a surface inside of Twinmotion. One of the big things that I find that was very easy and useful to use, and when placing materials, oftentimes you don't want the material to be on all walls because it's that wall type. Maybe I want this wall to be a different material. So I can change that by selecting apply to just the object. So maybe I want a different wall material. So let me go back to my library again, and I'm going to pick a different wall covering. I'm going to pick this plaster covering, and now I'm just going to drag it onto just that wall. So now, rather than changing all the wall coverings to this plaster, it just selected that one wall that I wanted to place it on. And again, I can change its scale. You can see that the bump map is starting to get a little deeper, and the scale of that material is increasing a little bit. One of the fun features that is included inside of Twinmotion is this this concept of grunge. So if I go to my color, again, I can change the color here. I'll just show you that very quickly of what that kind of looks like. I can change, maybe it's a little darker yellow or whatever it might be. But again, one of the fun features here is this feature called grunge. So what this does is that as I move up my grunge, you can see that the wall material now starts to get a little weathered and a little older looking. So it's another nice feature where you can kind of show more realistic placement of that material over time. Over time, this wall material is going to start to look a little bit weathered. So you have that ability here. And these kinds of features can all be animated. So I'll show you a quick animation at the end here, but very easy to do there. So moving on from materials, let's get into kind of placing some assets and objects inside of Twinmotion. Again, very simple. It's a very extensive library that's included. So let me go back to my library and let's go to characters. So the character library, again, quite extensive. There's a whole slew of different kinds of people in here. So if I select Emily, I'm just going to drag her into the scene here and see that she's placed into my scene. You'll notice that anytime that I drop an asset or an object into the Twinmotion viewport here, I have this little gizmo here. And this gizmo allows me to kind of manipulate those objects. I can rotate her. I can grab this little yellow button in the middle and I can kind of move her around. Additionally, there are a variety of different kinds of animations that are provided with every figure. So maybe she's sitting. That would maybe if she was sitting on a chair. If I go back to idle, maybe there's some different animations. Maybe she's drinking something, she's phoning, whatever it might be. So by default, there's a lot of fun little things that you can do to these characters inside your scene. So not only can you place individual objects or characters, we can place groups as well. So there's a group of 2, group of 3, whatever it might be. So if I can grab this group of 3 and drop them into the scene here. What's nice about Twinmotion is that when you're selecting these groups, you can see that there's these 3 people here. If I select another group and place them out here, it randomly changes them into a different set of people that are now included into the scene. So it changes it up so you're not getting the same 3 set of people on every time you drop in a group of people. Additionally, there's some other fun things that we can put in here. There's some animals. So we can put Felix out here. Maybe Felix is sitting underneath the pool table. Gideon, the office dog, is over here. Again, I can translate him or move him around a little bit. There are also tools for scaling these objects. So again, at the bottom here, you got the material picker, but I also have the ability to scale and rotate them with these features here as well. Some other fun things that we can do in here is, let me go back to objects, is placing decals. Decals are quite useful here in terms of maybe, especially on the site, you want parking stripes or walking cross paths, turn lane indicators that you can place out there. For this particular, just for demonstration purposes, I can put this hopscotch decal here. And again, just like materials, I have the ability to, scale it up or down. I can change its opacity. I can offset it. I can also put another one here, maybe this colored pavement. I'm going to drop this on here. And you can change its sort order. So you can see right now that this particle decal is sitting below that. If I change the sort order, you can see that it moves this pattern on top of that. So, but I probably want it below it. So you can change the sort order on any of those decals inside of your model. Also, again, I can grab this like graffiti. I can place it on this wall here. You can see that as I hover around and I move this, it automatically places it along the plane of that wall very easily. So again, you still have all the functionality like materials where you can scale them up or down and change its opacity. Maybe it's a little a little more see-through, something like that. Along with not just placing characters and decals, I go back to my library and I select some objects, and let's go to the office and place some tables. So again, a fairly rich library of content, but again, as I mentioned earlier, we can import other assets into Twinmotion, but this is out of the box. So I can drop this meeting table here. Again, grabbing that little gizmo here, I can move that out of the way and move it over here. Perhaps I want to place a chair, so I can grab this chair, drop that into the scene. Again, still have my gizmos where I can move them around or grab this and rotate them. If I wanted to copy this, I just hover over this and hit my Shift key. Now I can make a copy or an instance of that particular asset in my scene. So very easy for me to put content into my scene very, very easily. Lighting. So let's go back to lighting. So let me go back to my library and talk about lighting. So again, Twinmotion is very rich with all these light types that you can import into your scene. So these are these IES light types. So again, very easy. I can just grab one of these lights and then drop it into my scene here. And I can manipulate maybe its angle, maybe it's a little more focused, change its attenuation, maybe have it go down, down a little bit, and increase its intensity. So now you can see that light kind of shining onto the pool table here. Again, maybe I put another light over here and change its attenuation, have it a little more focused. And again, what really makes this come to life is maybe I want to change its time of day. So if I drop this down to a night, then I can really kind of see those lights shine in the scene. You can see that this light is relatively bright. Again, one of the nice things about Twinmotion is, I kind of lost the gizmo for the light here, but if I go back to my scene graph and I select on lights, and I can click on any one of these lights, now I have the ability to see, I can see the gizmo for that light, and now I can kind of change its attenuation a little bit, maybe. Something like that. Maybe I want to turn on the shadows. Let me turn on the shadows of this light here. So again, very powerful, very easy. You can see how quickly I'm building out this scene very quickly, very easily. So speaking of the gizmos, one of the things that, and this is just my personal preference, is that I don't like to have the gizmos in my scene just because I like to keep it relatively clean here. But what we can do, let me change this back to more of a midday kind of time. If I go to my burger menu, I go to preferences, and I go to appearances, you have these visual helpers. So if I turn visual helpers back on, now you're going to see those light cans up in the sky. But again, it's a personal preference. I prefer to have them off because I always know that I can go to my scene graph and kind of find whatever I'm looking for through the scene graph. So I'll just go back to my preferences, appearances, and then I'm going to turn off my visual helpers. Additionally, there's a variety of other settings in here that you can set up. One of the things that Twinmotion will do, it will determine, based on what your computer is, what kind of resolution or performance that Twinmotion will be working at. And so by default, my computer set at high. My computer isn't not a workstation or a gaming computer. It's just a laptop. So, but it's set at high, so I can do most of the things that I need to do inside of Twinmotion. But again, it's just an automatic setup. If I can always bypass that and say I just want it to be low, so your manipulations will be a little bit faster. But just some setting functionality there inside of Twinmotion. And again, just walking through the scene here is as easy as I'm going to turn my speed down to walking, so I can just kind of walk around my scene here. And you have 3 speeds inside of Twinmotion, 1, 2, and 3. 1 is basically walking. 2 is considered like a bicycle speed. and 3 is a vehicle speed. So if I shoot to 2, you can see how much faster it goes. So very easy for me to kind of manipulate and kind of study this space very quickly, very easily. So let's go outside now and work on the outside a little bit and show you some of the features and some of the fun stuff outside that we can do. When we brought in this file from Revit and in the FBX format, you can see that these trees are these RCP trees. They're basically just cardboard cutouts. But I can easily change those out inside of Twinmotion. So if I select on this tree, let me change my scene graph to all, and then he tells me that these were just some Italian cypress trees. So I'm going to select all these trees. Oops. All right. Just a click and shift, just like in any other application to select multiple objects. And I hit these 3 buttons on the right-hand side here, and I'm going to say I want to replace those objects. So if I go back to my library and go to vegetation and go some trees, I want to find a tree here, maybe this Lombardy poplar. So now I have this down into my area where I want to swap those out, and I just hit replace. And you can see they're quite large, but I can easily manipulate that by changing its age to something relatively it's a little more reasonable inside this scene here. So it's that easy, that quickly that I can swap out trees. And again, these are a whole lot nicer than those RCP trees. So very easy to do. Let me navigate over to one of these flower beds. See if I can navigate here. Another nice feature is the ability to quickly kind of put your building in context with, environmental things. One of them is this vegetation scatter. So if I wanted to kind of build out my flower bed here, I'm going to select this ling heather, and I'm going to select it, and I'm going to just flood this shape here. So automatically, that quickly places in this kind of these landscape features here. Now you notice there's a little bit of a bleed just based on how big these things are, but I can go in there and clean that up by using my eraser tool. Oops, that's a little big. Let me change my eraser, something a little reasonable. I can just kind of hover over that, and oops, I can kind of erase out those that landscaping that's kind of overarching the brick wall there. So again, very easy for me to place vegetation in the site. One thing that I noticed right away that I don't like is this ground here. So if I, again, just like any other material, I'm going to select that ground here. And by default, it came in with some funky little ground covering, but I'm going to change that to a grass. I'm just going to drop that grass on there. That feels a little better now that we got some grass out there. Again, let me change the time of day so we can kind of see things a little better here in the light. So similar to building out that flower bed, I can start placing other things in here. Go back to my library, vegetation. So again, I can start placing some trees. So I can just drag this tree onto my site and see how easy it is to put that tree out there. And I can change its size by changing its age. And again, just like the characters, as I drop trees, every tree is going to be slightly different than the one previous. So it has the ability to kind of randomly place these objects out there very quickly. So you can see how easy it is for me to drop in those trees one by one. One of the things that, again, that makes your life a little bit easier in building out this site is the ability to do vegetation planting. So if I do vegetation planting, I'm going to grab a variety of trees here. Just kind of put them into my palette down here. And I'm going to go ahead and paint this. Let me change my diameter a little bit bigger. So for me to paint this vegetation, it's as quick as just painting on my site. And so now I've built out my site with a variety of trees that quickly. So rather than doing one by one, I was able to kind of come in here and drop in a whole bunch of trees very quickly, just based on how many trees were in my library here that I selected to place. So now that I have this kind of built out a little bit, let me fix a few other things here. So let me go back to my scene graph, and let me turn off that starting ground because I don't want to see that there. And let me put something out there that is more relevant to my grass. So I'm going to change the landscape to a flat landscape. I'll just take a second here. A flat grassy landscape. So just taking a second here. And again, that quickly now I got a site that it's a little more pleasing. It shows more consistency with my site and what's in the background here. Also, perhaps I want to change the background of this setting here. What I can do is change the background. So if I go to the background, again, it's preloaded with a variety of different types. There's this sort of this generic one. The city, a town, countryside, you know, looks like Mount Fuji in the background. I'm just going to select this mountain range. So now we have this building in context. It's more than a rural setting here. So if I go back here, sorry, to my settings menu, some of the other things that I can do here is change kind of the north offset. So you can see as I move that, the sunlight changes according to where my north is. I showed you earlier the time of day, you know, so as I scroll this up and down, you can see the shadows change. Additionally, I can change things like the weather. So I'm going from a sunny day to maybe a little bit cloudy day, and maybe it's a rainy day, something like that. I can also change its season, so I can go from summer to fall, something like that. Or I can go all the way up to a rainy day, but in the wintertime, that turned into be a snowy day. And then maybe I want to change and turn on this feature called smog. So if I bring up that smog, it really looks like a bit of a blizzard out there now. So it really adds some realism and life to this scene. Very, very easy, very, very quickly. So let me get rid of all that fun stuff and go back to more of a summer scene here. And let's go and place some other things here to kind of bring some more life to my scene. Another fun feature inside of Twinmotion is the ability to add paths. So you can add vehicle paths, bike paths, or a custom path, or a character path. So let me add a quick character path. I'm just going to kind of put something out here, have them go down the stairs, and then kind of walk out here. So I got a simple character path here. Maybe I want to change its density, bring that density up so the volume of people that are on that path start to increase. Maybe the width needs to be a little wider so there's people walking side by side, or there's more density to the people walking in and out of the building. So now if I navigate over to maybe a view over here, gives the appearance of people walking out of my building. Again, if I need to manipulate my character path, I go to my scene graph, go to paths, click on my character path. Now I have the editability here. Again, maybe I want to make that a little bit wider. Perhaps I want to reverse this, and maybe it's in the morning and people are going to work. So let's change that to maybe it's 7 o'clock in the morning, so people are now walking into work. Look at how excited they are. So very easy for me to create and give some life and some texture to this scene very, very quickly. So with that, ultimately you want to get these views and animations exported. So for me to create quick little images, if I go to my media command here, I can quickly create an image by clicking on my image and say create an image. So now I've kind of locked that image into place here. If I navigate to a different view, and then I say create image. I've created that view. But I also, with inside of each one of these views, they can act independently of my master viewport. So if I click on this view, I can change this to be unique, something unique. Maybe it's not 7 o'clock in the morning. It's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And let me update that. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's a cloudy day, something like that, right? So I can very quickly, independently change any one of my views or images outside of my master viewport. So if I quit my media mode, you can see it goes back to where I was before. So I click on my image, it changes to the settings that I had there. Similarly, I can create videos. So let me navigate to an area on in my viewport here. Maybe I'm looking here. I'm going to create a quick video. So I'm going to start a video. So there's my first keyframe. And perhaps I move out here somewhere, something like that. Create my second keyframe and create an animation. So that fast, I created an animation. Obviously, you can get a whole lot more sophisticated in here by changing things like the weather and the time of day, but you can see how quick and easy that was for me to create that animation. And in order to export these images and animations, I just go into my export and I can select what images I want to create to export, and then go ahead and export those images. How am I doing here on time? I'm almost done here. Let me get out of this. Just one last quick thing here. Let me just go back to a little brighter time of day. In that introduction video, I kind of showed how there was this depth of view. Let me see if I can set that up very quickly. So you can see that I'm, sorry, kind of navigate in front of these leaves here. So what I can do is if I go to my camera settings, I can turn on my depth of view. And now you can see that when I turn that on, you can see that these trees these leaves are in the foreground become, out of focus, and things in the background are in focus. Or I can change the aperture setting by open up the eye of that iris on the camera, and now they become in focus. So there's a lot of really wonderful tools here that give a lot of realism to images that you're creating or animations that you're creating. So very, very quick and easy. So with that, I think I'm on time here, Lisa. I will
Yes, you are.
end that. And I did want to show one real quick thing. We did talk about this idea of presenter. The presenter mode is very powerful in that it will package all the images and videos that you've created into an executable file that you can share with your customers or other users. So let me get out of this file, and I don't want to save that. Let me see if I can bring up my presenter file for you very quickly. So the user that gets this executable file will not need Twinmotion, so you send them this executable file that's completely packaged. They get it, they just click on this file, and it'll open up this model for them. So it's a real nice way to share this information with your customers. So this is not a fully vetted out site, but it's the same model I was using. But there's images here that if I click on, it kind of runs a simple little animation that shows you image 1. I'll switch to image 2. Go to image 3. I can pause this. Maybe I go back to image 1. But in this model, I have full capability to now navigate around this model. So I can start walking through this and kind of explore on my own. Now, granted, I can't change any of the materials or things, but I can start doing a real quick study of this model. I can walk through it as if I, essentially own the model. So I can start walking inside the model very easily. So again, once this presenter file is exported out, you can share it with your customers. So.